Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Pole Position Podcast, episode 8. Thank you so much for the support on the last video, and we are here for the review of the Russia Grand Prix. Yes, the Sochi Autodrome did bring out another good race, and we are here to discuss it. I have 6 more things to talk about, so without further ado, let's get stuck into it. So, Number 1. Now, this is the main important factor of the weekend, and it's Ferrari deciding to put in team orders, which for me didn't really seem necessary. Now, I know that some people are going to say that there was the threat of Lewis Hamilton in second place with Charles Leclerc on pole and Sebastian Vettel in third position. And some people will be like, well, they needed to do that just in case something happened and Lewis Hamilton Lewis Hamilton did take first place. But I think with both Ferrari drivers in where they were, I honestly didn't see the reasoning for making this plan that they did. Sebastian Vettel made a fantastic start, jumped Lewis Hamilton almost immediately, and benefited from the fact that Charles Leclerc was in pole position to go past him and head into turn 2 as the leader of the race. I just don't see the reasoning for Ferrari bringing in that team plan, because I think Vettel orchestrated it fantastically in terms of his own race, made a fantastic start, and just progressed from there. I think Charles Leclerc was immediately on the radio asking to whether we're going to swap the drivers as soon as possible, and I just think it caused unnecessary friction between the two drivers during the race. Like it didn't need to be there. I think Ferrari had the faster car all weekend, and they should have known that going into the race and thinking, well, even if Hamilton does get ahead, we can probably overtake him using DRS. So, is there any reason for a plan to be put in place? And honestly, I don't think there should have been. I think, Charles Leclerc obviously was getting a bit, I don't want to say whiny on the radio, but a bit like Singapore. I think Singapore was worse for him, and I understand him for that. But in terms of Russia, I think if you start on pole, that there is a chance that you're going to go into the first 2 corners not being in the lead of the race because of the long straight heading into turn 2 and the slipstream that other drivers behind you can get from your car. I actually think starting on pole is the worst position possible in the Russian Grand Prix, and I think he probably should have been aware of that. I think he's using the fact that he played the team game as a reason to go back ahead, but I think Sebastian Vettel was just purely faster, got the best start, benefited from the slipstream of Charles Leclerc, and then once he got ahead, he was pumping in fastest sectors and pulling away from Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. So I think the fact that Leclerc was asking to do the swap just wouldn't have worked, because Vettel was so far ahead that had he backed off to let Leclerc through, he would have then been under serious pressure from Hamilton for Vettel to try and start back up again and get back up to full race pace. Hamilton probably would have pounced on him by then. So I think Sebastian Vettel was very much in his right to not let Leclerc through at that moment in time. And I think most importantly, Vettel is getting feisty in these last 2 races. He wants to win more than I think he has at the start of the season. He's seen Leclerc, and he's seen the way that he's sort of integrating himself into the team and looking to be like the number 1 driver at Ferrari. I think Vettel's realising now that he needs to put a stamp on it, and I honestly think that he was doing that, and he was having a fantastic race. Was Sebastian Vettel? I mean, obviously Ferrari deny this, but I do believe that they used the pit stops to let Charles Leclerc ahead. They said that wasn't the case. They were just leaving Sebastian Vettel out in case something happened. And turns out it was Sebastian Vettel that caused the something to happen. They used that as their reasoning. But I honestly think that they put Charles Leclerc in, pitted him first. He then did the undercut and was ahead of Vettel. But I think once Vettel came out, had he been able to continue and didn't have his reliability issue, I do believe that we would have had a great battle between the 2 drivers, and I think Sebastian Vettel would have come out on top. I think he really wanted this race win in Russia, and obviously to be the first driver that's not in a Mercedes to win the Russian Grand Prix. But the lap that he came in, after he'd come in for his pit stop, the lap back around, he had a reliability issue, and it was an MGUK. And you can't be serious was what he said on the radio. And yeah, for me as well, I was absolutely gutted, because I thought he had a fantastic weekend and a fantastic race, and it's just a shame that we didn't get to see the battle with his teammate at the end of the race. But yeah, again, reliability, what are we going to do? Vettel was on the radio asking to bring back the V12s, and I think a lot of fans out there would love that to happen, but obviously that is not going to happen in the world we live in right now. V12s are getting a lot of stick, so there's no way that we're ever going to go back to that. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice, wouldn't it? But that's not the case. But yeah, shame for Vettel. I mean, he did get driver of the day, which I did think was funny, with the fact that there was 25 laps or something left of the race, yet he still got driver of the day. But yeah, I mean, that just shows for me, how well he did on the Sunday. But yeah, personally for me, in the terms of the team orders and Vettel and Leclerc relationship, I don't think it's going to affect their relationship too much. I think every time Leclerc steps out of the car, he realises that maybe I've said too much. I think he said it after Singapore. He was like, I need to calm down on the radio. Didn't really do that this weekend in Russia, but yeah, I think it's not going to affect him too much. I think Vettel's doing a great job in terms of driving, and I think he was very much diplomatic after the race and said, I don't really want to talk about it. We'll talk about it as a team first, and if anything does come out, we'll let you know in the next race weekend. So yeah, I think the relationship will be fine. Team orders, like I've said just previously, I don't think there should have been this sort of plan between the team and between the two drivers. I don't think it was necessary. I think that they were the faster car over the weekend, and with the power of DRS on that straight, I think that Ferrari probably would have overtook Hamilton had he even got into the lead at that point. But there was a few safety cars during the race that obviously wasn't Sebastian Vettel. There was a George Russell one, which we'll talk about, which might have benefited Ferrari had Lewis Hamilton been ahead. But yeah, that's all hypothetical. But yeah, that's the first point over. I don't think there should have been a plan. And I think Leclerc and Vettel will be fine heading into the next few races. So yeah, that's point number one. And we're going to head into point number two. Right, so point number two is Mercedes. And Hamilton, well, he's just going to win the World Championship with ease. I said this in Singapore's review last week, that it just looks perfect for Lewis Hamilton. And yeah, managing to get the win from this weekend just shows that he's easily going to win. Now, in terms of Sebastian Vettel obviously having the MGUK issue, he stopped on the track, virtual safety car came out, and he was in the perfect time. He was still on the medium tyres from the very beginning, and he came in, and most of the time it's about 25 seconds for a penalty, for a pit stop in Russia, and I think he managed to do it in 15 seconds because everybody else was going so slow on the racetrack because of the virtual safety car. And yeah, managed to come out ahead, I think quite comfortably. It was about 3 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. So perfect stop for Mercedes, and perfect timing for them as well. I think Valtteri Bottas came in at the same time and managed to come out in third place. And then with the George Russell actual full safety car, Ferrari decided to bring in Charles Leclerc for a fresh set of soft tyres to see if they can put the fight to Bottas and Hamilton. But yeah, that just wasn't the case. Bottas once again, Hamilton's wingman, and I know he's not going to like me keep saying that, but it just happens to be. I mean, in all honesty, when the safety car was ending, I would have loved to have seen Bottas just go gung ho and just go, right, let's take on Lewis Hamilton. Let's see what he can do. Will he be surprised by me going for him? And yeah, what's going to happen? Because in all honesty, nobody else is going to catch Lewis Hamilton. It's only going to be Valtteri Bottas, and if they keep putting him in second place and saying just defend Valtteri, then obviously Lewis Hamilton's going to win, and I think he's going to win anyway. With the fact that how the team are using the Bottas as in the relationship. But I would just love it if Bottas just decided, right, let's take on Lewis Hamilton in the final 20 laps or whatever it was in the end, and let's see what I can do. Can I take the victory here? He loves the Russian Grand Prix. He got his first win in Sochi, so it's definitely a track for him. But when he's being told to just sit back and defend from Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton's already off in the distance. He's like 5 seconds ahead. So yeah, it's like, oh well, here we go again. Lewis Hamilton's going to win the race thanks to Valtteri Bottas. But I think that's literally it. I mean, Hamilton's closest rival is the Finn, his teammate, and I don't know. I just think it's such a shame. I would love to see Bottas, whether he would actually fight with Hamilton. We're not going to know that because he's being told by the chief strategist to hang back and try his best to fight off Charles Leclerc, who's attacking from behind. Great defending by Bottas, anyway. I think he did a good job in terms of that, but I would like to see him taking on his teammate, not defending from a Ferrari behind. But I suppose credit to Lewis Hamilton for being in the right place at the right time and doing such a long stint on the medium tyres, hoping that there would be such a thing as a virtual safety car or a safety car. And he's now become the all-time record holder for races led. He's overtook Michael Schumacher, 143rd race he has led from the Russian Grand Prix this weekend. So yeah, fair dues to Lewis Hamilton, and like I said, to be in the right place at the right time. Still got their 100% win record at Russia, have Mercedes, so credit for them, and obviously looking for their 6th world title. So they're probably going to seal it up in Japan. I think, is it Japan in the next race that the constructors might be wrapped up, and then it's either going to be Mexico or USA for Lewis Hamilton to wrap up the drivers, because like I said, at this rate, Valtteri Bottas isn't going to put much of a threat if the team orders are still in place. So yeah, that's point number 2. Well done to Mercedes for keeping that win record going, and Lewis Hamilton at this rate will easily win the Drivers' Championship. So that is point number 2. Let's head into point number 3. And point number 3 is McLaren. Yes, for the first time in a long time, they have actually got over 100 points in a season. Absolutely incredible. Thank goodness for that. Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris 6th and 8th in the race. Carlos Sainz having an absolute amazing weekend, and I think Lando Norris did well as well. But before Sochi, Carlos Sainz had failed to score a point since the summer break. So what a great time to change that and get a few points for the team. Actually trying to challenge Hamilton for 3rd place at the start. Both McLarens got an absolutely unbelievable start. I don't know if that's whether because Hamilton maybe got a poor one, or that the both McLaren drivers were just amazing off the line. But at the start I was like, oh my god, what's going on here? The two orange papaya cars of McLaren are fighting at the top here. Sadly, didn't continue for the whole race. But I think fantastic result for Carlos Sainz. Could have been 5th, but Alex Albon working his way up the field from the pit lane also did a good job. He's not in this 6 points, but well done to Alex Albon for doing that from the pit lane all the way up to 5th position. But Sainz could have had it, but I think the Red Bull was just a bit stronger than them this weekend. So, for Carlos Sainz, absolutely great result. Lando Norris as well was pushed up thanks to Kevin Magnussen, but we are going to discuss that penalty a little bit later on in the podcast. But top 6 finish of the season for the Spaniard in Carlos Sainz, 3 points behind Gasly. Considering Gasly was in a Red Bull at the start of the season, that's a good stat for Carlos Sainz. And also for Lando Norris, well done this weekend. Again, keeps pushing hard, Carlos Sainz, and considering this is Norris's first full season in F1, I think he's doing an amazing job, and I love the two drivers at McLaren at this moment in time. I think obviously I loved it when Jenson Button, my favourite Formula 1 driver, and Fernando Alonso were in the team at the same time. But I think 2 youngsters in this car, in Sainz and Norris, they're doing an absolutely fantastic job, and I'm really looking forward to them. And also, I have another point about McLaren at the end of this podcast from news that came out during the weekend, but we'll probably discuss that later on in the podcast. But fantastic job by McLaren and obviously Carlos Sainz, and that's point 3. Well done, McLaren. And point 4, going from a great weekend from one team to another bad weekend for another. Point 4 is another bad day at the office for Williams. Both drivers retiring from the race, and that's the first time this season. Obviously, George Russell retired from the race in Singapore, and I said, well, it can only get better from here. And, well, I was wrong, because it can't. This weekend in Sochi, both drivers retiring from the race. Now, I'm going to say it this weekend, the only way is up, surely, now, after what we've seen. Hopefully for Williams, come on, please Williams, please. Russell retired after a technical failure. Saw him go into the barriers. I think he was lucky that it wasn't at full race pace, because he'd just come out the pits for a new set of tyres, so he probably just warming them up. So lucky in terms of that. I'm not sure what it was, but I'm just getting the technical failure. So I'm not sure if it was the brakes. It did look like it when he went into the barrier, but he was all okay, which was the most important thing. Now Kubica's one does surprise me. I don't know whether it was because of the fact that they saw George Russell have his issue, and they were worried about Kubica's car. But it says that he retired because he was told to conserve parts for the rest of the season. Now, that's a bit weird, isn't it, for Williams to say that, for a driver and for a team that are at the back of the grid anyway. They've only got 1 point this season, and that was at Germany, where anything could have happened, and it did, because Williams managed to get a point. So I think conserving parts for the rest of the season, is that really necessary for a team that's hardly going to be fighting for points and are going to be at the back of the race anyway? I just think that's a bit weird. Why save the car when they're not going to fight for anything for the rest of the season? So that's a bit weird one for me. I'm not quite sure whether there was an issue in it and they didn't want to say, and they just said, well, we'll save the car for another race to come. But a bit weird. But again, another bad weekend for Williams, and I've just said it. I hope it can get better from here, but every weekend it just seems to be getting worse and worse. But hopefully, Williams have obviously got plans in place for next season. We still don't know their driver alongside George Russell for next season, but hopefully that'll be announced sooner rather than later, and we can get some more positive news coming out of the Williams team, because it's not looking great at the moment. So that's point 4, another bad weekend for Williams. And point 5 is this penalty point system that was going on at the track on the weekend at Sochi. Now, like I said, Lando Norris was able to overtake Kevin Magnussen in the race classification, because Kevin Magnussen got a 5-second penalty for going, I think it was over turn 2. He went over the sausage curbs that were there, and he did manage to go through the sort of the arrows pointing to which way you should go as a driver, but he missed the first 2. But I thought the first 2 was if you missed the whole corner in general, whereas he only missed the first part. He only missed the second part, sorry, and he went across. But he went between the 2 arrows that said where he should go for the second part. So for me, I think it was very harsh. There was no way he was going to make the first 2 barriers, or the first 2 arrows. There was no way. He was making a move up Sergio Perez, and going down the inside. There was no way he was going to be able to turn left to go round the full arrow system. So I think the fact that he got a 5-second penalty for that is extremely harsh. I mean, I think Gunter Steiner said an idiotic decision by the stewards. Kevin Magnussen was very bleep on the cameras after the race. He was giving the editors a lot of pain, having to bleep out all of his language from the interviews. But I think he was right to say that. I think whoever made that decision, it was extremely harsh for Kevin Magnussen, and saw him go from 8th to 9th, and these are important points for Haas, especially with Romain Grosjean out of the race in the first corner because of a collision with Giovinazzi and Ricciardo. Obviously that was just a racing incident, but annoying for Haas in the fact that their first lap they've already lost a car. I think Romain Grosjean said it, all the work we put in the weekend just to go out in the first lap by some strange decision, three cars in one doesn't go, yet that's what happened, and 2 of the cars, because Ricciardo carried on but he had to retire because the car was too badly damaged. So 2 drivers out of the race because of one silly decision by, I don't know, by all three. I think it was just a racing incident, but yeah, it's just a bit of a shame for Romain Grosjean as well. But yeah, for Magnussen, I honestly I don't get it. There was the F2 race as well, but I think it was the feature race before it. There was a big accident where three cars sort of came into each other and they hit the barrier, and luckily they were all okay. Everyone from that incident was okay, but yeah, I just don't understand. You put these arrows and ways to go back onto the track in place, and then when you feel like somebody hasn't done all of them, you give them a penalty when. I honestly I don't think there was any way he would be able to make the first arrow system. So yeah, it's crazy for me. I don't understand. But in terms of all these runoffs and putting these arrow systems in place because the runoffs are all tarmac, should we just go back to grass and gravel? Look at the tracks like Monza and Spa. If you go off track, there's a little bit of tarmac, but you go on to gravel or grass, and your race is over. So you don't want to risk, because I think in qualifying as well, sometimes the drivers get told off because they're using too much of the runoff, because they're not worried about it. So if we run off and we go onto a bit of tarmac, what does it matter? Whereas if you look at Monza, if you run off there, like the first corner, and even second corner to an extent, you're going to go into the gravel, and your qualifying session or your race is over. So. Yeah, it's like, should we just have all racetracks as grass and gravel now? I know they had this conversation on Sky Sports F1, and it was like, well, tracks like these, they need track days to sort of fund the circuit all year round. Formula One don't pay them that much to allow F1 to change whatever they want in terms of the racetrack layout. If they have racetrack days and people keep going into the gravel, it's a lot worse than if they just go off and run off onto the tarmac, and so I understand in terms of the people that run the track, they won't want to be doing this, but I think F1 need to look at it and they think, well, if we're going to give people stupid penalties because they're running off onto the tarmac and we think they're gaining an advantage or they haven't done what we've said they should do, then maybe we should look at having a grass runoff or more gravel put in place. I think even if they took out a bit of tarmac at the end, at the very corner where the barriers are, just before the barriers of the layout, and put gravel there, and I think that would be a little bit better as well. But hey, I mean, who am I to say? I'm just somebody that does a podcast every weekend or after every race weekend. So yeah, I mean, the penalty point system for going off track at Russia was extremely harsh, and I think Kevin Magnussen was really hard done by. He had a good race that the team did well during the safety cars to get him back out on track and take him up a few positions, and yeah, I just think it was a stupid decision to give him that 5-second penalty, which cost Haas and Magnussen valuable points. So yeah, I mean, that's point number 5. What's going on with this penalty point system? And point number 6 from the Russian Grand Prix weekend is the fact that Mercedes will be supplying McLaren with engines from the 2021 season. Now, this is, for me, very big news. I'm obviously a McLaren fan, if you didn't know that already. But 2021 onwards, McLaren will be supplied engines by Mercedes. Now, this is 2021 to 2024. And yeah, McLaren want the best engines on the grid, and they feel that Mercedes still are in terms of supplying the teams on the F1 grid. They obviously supply Racing Point and Williams already. Now, I think there was a sort of issue going, can Mercedes keep supplying more teams? I think they've obviously got permission by the FIA to do it, otherwise this wouldn't have been announced. But yeah, so they'll be supplying themselves, Racing Point, Williams and McLaren from 2021. Now, the issue is that too many teams being supplied by one engine manufacturer? Yeah, I mean, you could say that, I suppose, but with all the deals being announced, I think Williams have already secured it. They obviously talked about McLaren. The only one that isn't fully announced is Racing Point from 2021 onwards, but we're guessing they're still going to be it with a Mercedes engine. But yeah, I mean, you could say that, I suppose, that the more teams with the same engine, I suppose it'd be all down to how the teams actually build their car and not down to the engine. I mean, I suppose that could be quite interesting. A lot of people have said for a long time maybe we should all have the same engines and it'd just be about the drivers, but it'll be about the teams and how they build their car and their chassis and their aerodynamics for the 2021 season if that's the case. But I think for McLaren, this season with Renault's been okay. Still some reliability. I think Renault, the actual main team, have had more unreliability than McLaren this season. But McLaren say they want the best engines on the grid for their car, and I think at this point Mercedes probably are still the better team and the best engine supplier on the grid. But this will leave, because no other teams have announced that they're going to be using the Renault engine. This will leave Renault, the only team using their engine, will be themselves. Not really great for Renault, because I think they needed the money from McLaren to keep funding to make their engine better. So, not really great for them. I'm not sure if they knew it was coming or whether they sort of got blindsided by the fact that this deal was announced. McLaren will be with Renault for next season, but from 2021 onwards they will be powered by a Mercedes engine, and that does feel good, because watching McLaren when I was growing up, that was McLaren Mercedes. So it will be great to see the Mercedes logo back on McLaren. Hopefully that will give them that extra step to be fighting alongside Mercedes for championships and for drivers' championships as well. So good news I think for McLaren, and let's just hope they get their car ready for the 2021 season with the Mercedes engine in the back. And so that is all the 6 points for the Russian Grand Prix. I'm just going to look at the drivers and constructors standings. So the driver's standings: Lewis Hamilton in the lead with 322 points. Valtteri Bottas, his teammate, with 249. And it's looking easy, isn't it, for Lewis Hamilton? Charles Leclerc in third with 215. Max Verstappen had a bit of a lonely race. I hadn't even talked about him in this Russian Grand Prix. And it was just a bit of a lonely race. They looked off the pace between Ferrari and Mercedes, and they were just best of the rest, really. So shame for Max Verstappen, but he did get the points he needed to. He's only 3 points away from Charles Leclerc in the driver's standings. And Sebastian Vettel, he got driver of the day, but that doesn't give you any points. 194 points he's now got, so he's in 5th position. And I'd like to see, maybe will he fight his teammate and Max Verstappen for that 3rd place heading into the end of the year at Abu Dhabi. Pierre Gasly in 6th with 69. Carlos Sainz, like I said, great weekend, only 3 points away from Gasly now in his McLaren. And Alex Albon as well, doing a great job to get from the pit lane to 5th position with 52 points in 8th. Lando Norris in 9th. And Daniel Ricciardo, who didn't get any points in the race, is now level with his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, 10th and 11th, but they both got 34 points, so that should be interesting indeed going into the next few races in Japan as well. And the team standings, well, like I said, Mercedes could probably wrap this up pretty quickly. Mercedes have 571 points. In 2nd place, Ferrari with 409. Red Bull Honda with 311. And McLaren Renault with 101. Like I said before, the first time in a while that McLaren have got over 100 points in a season. So fantastic news for them. And Renault, who are supplying their engines only on 68. So they need to work on that. And obviously, like I said, not great for Williams, because they're still down the bottom with only 1 point for this season. So that has been the 6 points from the Russian Grand Prix. Thank you very much for watching and for watching this episode of the Pole Position podcast. We will be back for the Japanese Grand Prix review. So I look forward to discussing points and for you to be watching them then. So thank you very much for watching and listening, and we will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.